Entry number 3, Colossus of Rhodes, December 17th, 2064. The more I begin to piece it all together, the evidence that these wonders of the ancient world, with the exception of the Great Pyramid, were destroyed due to kaiju attacks, it all starts to make sense. We live in a world where monsters exist, so I'm quite surprised that this idea hasn't been picked up by archaeologists yet. Even though earthquakes aren't always caused by kaiju, however, this won't be the first time that there's been an attack, and they don't want you to know right away. Many years ago, back in 1980, when the world was threatened by Calamity Death Star Gorath, there was an incident that had occurred in Antarctica, and the scientists said that it was an earthquake triggered by Gorath's approach to the Earth. However, a few years later, when all the Earth's monsters were rounded up to be studied on Monster Island, originally called Monsterland, they confessed that they were attacked by a giant walrus-like kaiju, which they named Maguma. The kaijuologists, people who research giant monsters, weren't too pleased that they killed him off rather than preserve him, so an expedition was launched in an attempt to find another member of the species, but to no avail, and it was decided that Maguma was the last of his kind, but the search is still going to this day. If there was an incident that involved a kaiju that happened in Antarctica, then how many more times has it occurred throughout history? Anyway, back to me. In 2043, I was wandering around Rhodes Harbour, specifically the location where the Colossus of Rhodes once stood. Since I was a child, the Colossus was the wonder that interested me the most, being the Mediterranean equivalent / ancestor to the Statue of Liberty. The Colossus was built to celebrate the Greeks' victory over the Persians, but unfortunately the bronze statue sadly didn't last that long, unlike the others, and only stood for 55 years to come into a massive earthquake that struck the island of Rhodes in 228 BC. Something to which I have always found suspicious even as a kid, because the Colossus seemed like the sort of monument that could survive a natural disaster unless the island received a kaiju attack. However, this time round, unlike the past structures, no known piece of the Colossus has made it to the present day, as they were all removed from the harbour and taken away into the wilderness never to be seen again. But the trail doesn't stop cold, because I have a colleague who translates Greek and Roman writing into English, and she has collected letters from ancient Rhodes. While most of the citizens from that time will tell you that it was an earthquake, well, the wrath of the sun god Helios, who apparently disliked the statue, talk about being ungrateful, there was actually a witness who documented what really happened, and this is what he had to say. The night started off quiet in the city of Rhodes. I was doing my duties on the harbour dock. I looked out to sea and noticed something off the coast, and it was a sight that I will never forget as long as I shall live. It looked like the statue, but it was alive. It seemed to be staring at me as if I had done something to displease it. The entity dove underwater, but I could still see its spears sticking out from underneath. It then arose from the depths. This great creature looked like something that only Hades himself would summon, with swords sticking out from its devilish face. It advanced onto Helios, toppling him over, and charged towards the city. You could hear buildings crumbling, men shouting, and women and children crying. The beast ripped off the roof of a temple, where it proceeded to devour all those inside, pleading for the gods to forgive them for their sinful ways. And when I saw its mouth drenched with the blood of its victims, it was as if the gods had abandoned us to this demon behemoth. It grinned at me, before howling, and advanced its dominating presence, and took off into the night sky to wreak its wrath upon the world. Morbius the Betrayer. After reading all that, I'm guessing that this Morbius character must have felt that he was responsible for the monster's appearance and blamed himself for the incident, and thus afterwards must have done the unthinkable. As for the kaiju who made its attack on Rhodes in 228 BC, and was assumedly the one to bring the end of the Colossus, I bet you're all curious on what Morbius was describing, so I'll explain. On the first description, I originally thought it was Godzilla, especially because Morbius mentioned what sounded like spines sticking out of the sea. However, he said that they looked a lot like spears, rather than leaf-shaped. He also said that the creature had swords stuck on each side of its face, and during its rampage, it took off and flew away. I believe that a more accurate term would be glide. Spears on the back, swords from the face, and the ability to glide, I think I know the Kaiju who brought down the Colossus of Rhodes. Some natives referred to this creature as Borodogi, but in 1958, the beast emerged from a lake where it had been hibernating for a millennium, and it was identified as a Varnapode, or Varn for short. Whether or not it was the same member of the species that destroyed the Colossus 2,000 years ago, or that one died and it was another member that awoke in the 50s, I'm not too certain on what the lifespan of a kaiju is, so I'm guessing that it's either thousands or even millions of years. We'll never know, but what I do know that it was Varn who destroyed the Colossus of Rhodes before the time of Christ, and the attack was truly unbelievable.